Within 24 hours, that crypto that I put $100 into went from a market cap of $6,000 to $240 million.
What's the easiest way for beginner investors to get started with gold investing, especially if they invest heavily into ETFs?
Yeah, well, in the United States, there is the GLD ETF. There's also the SLV ETF. They're run by, I believe, BlackRock, the biggest institutional investor in the world. There's some debate amongst the hardcore silver and gold communities whether or not those ETFs actually have all the physical gold and silver that they purport to. In speculation, I'm not going to comment on that, but that's probably the easiest way. The other option, if you're talking, specifically about the precious metals, is for a person to actually buy the metal from a local coin shop. But now there's just so many options online. I know both in Canada and the United States where people can comparison shop and buy physical gold and physical silver. I will say one very important thing, if anyone is ever going to buy the actual physical metals, do some background checking on who you're buying it from. And most of the bullion dealers out there, the vast majority, are great people, very legit. And make sure that the price that you're getting is as close to the spot price of silver and gold as possible. You can go out to Kitco, which is also a bullion dealer, and you can check the spot price of gold and silver. What you really want to do when you're buying physical metal is get as many ounces of the metal as you can for the lowest price. So, here's a good example of a 1 ounce silver coin, right? And it's fancy. It has a unicorn on it, but it's an ounce of silver in the long run, right? Unless it's a real collectible thing that's going to have some additional value added to it. I'm rambling on you here, but I will warn. Go ahead.
I had a couple questions. Spot price. I'm not too familiar with that terminology. So spot price, when I look at gold, I'll go online. The gold price is $2,500. Is that $2,500 per ounce? And then spot price, what exactly is that in relation to that price I just mentioned?
Yeah, well, the gold price right now is actually $3,200 per ounce. The spot price is like the immediate price for like immediate delivery of the metals. There's also a futures market, which, and look, I'm not the guru in these futures, essentially what you can do with the futures is you're getting into a contract to buy gold or silver at some future date. So the futures price usually is higher than the spot price. So the spot price is what people really want to keep an eye on because that's like the immediate price for gold and silver.
And then going back to the first way, you said buying, was that an ETF from BlackRock?
Yes.
Right? Okay, that's what I was doing some research into. Like SPDR, something like gold, I think is like one of them. Yeah. So what they do is they're housing the gold in some Swiss account somewhere, right, or who knows, underground.
London, yeah.
Right. But is it, in theory, it is directly tied to physical gold, right? Yes. It's not just being like, hey, gold price is this much and that's what it is. So when you buy in, you're technically buying into physical gold, right?
Yes.
That's the way it works?
Yep. Same thing with SLV, which is the silver ETF. In theory, you're buying into. Now, there's also in Canada, Sprott, you may have heard of Sprott Asset Management. They have PSLV, which stands for physical SLV. A lot of people in the gold and silver field feel like that's a much more legitimate way to buy the metal is through the Sprott gold and silver. And they're not, I think in Canada, they're called trusts. They're not called ETFs, but it's essentially the same thing.
Okay, let's hang on that for a bit. So I have a couple of questions. Talk about strategy around that. So a lot of the times, like the whole market kind of collapsed, but gold didn't. I was doing some research on it last night. I think they pulled back like a couple percent. But when you're looking at crude oil, you're looking at S&P 500, like the Trump 100, gold was the only thing up. I wrote a number down here. Gold was up 20% compared to everybody else. In the last 6 months, it's up 22. A year, it's up 34%. 5 years, it's up 4%.
Right.
Is gold going to keep going up? Is it overvalued? The S&P was overvalued for a bit. I'm thinking in my brain, what's the easiest way? Low-hanging fruit, buy an ETF. But am I buying at a potential all-time high and there's some pullback? Or because the markets are so volatile, there's tariffs, people are going more psychologically, let's get gold because gold's been around for 1,000 years and that's why it's not affected. It's like the one stable currency. Yeah. So it's not being affected as much and actually might go up further. Like these are questions I have.
Well, that's a big question to unpack. And I will tell your audience, I'm not a registered financial advisor. I'm not giving financial advice. However, I will give my opinion and my advice. And
Yeah.
I think, when you think about gold and silver, and I lump them together, precious metals, you got to realize that as you're talking about price, right? You're using the US dollar as the unit of measure. You're not talking about an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver. You're talking about the price of gold and silver as measured in US dollars. So we could talk for the next hour about how the value of the US dollar, if you know how to use a calculator, is in big trouble. Excuse me. So that's like one of the big factors to consider. The other thing with gold and silver is it's not just 1,000 years, Gary. Silver's actually been used as money longer than gold has. We're talking like 3,000, 4,000 years. It's universal, right? Throughout the entire planet. You and I could hop on an airplane, close our eyes, fly to any random place in the world right now, and gold and silver are valuable. We would run into somebody who would love. And so if you couple that with the fact that it has such a long history of doing that, we all suffer from what's called recency bias, right? Like I live here in the United States. I'm 55 years old. My entire life, this has had I've been brainwashed, right, to believe that this has some value. And it does have value, right?
Yeah.
And I love my country, all that great stuff. But we have to realize that when things get kind of out of control from a geopolitical level, when things get kind of out of control from a fiscal level with the United States government, that impacts that paper dollar. And if we're going to use that paper dollar as the unit of measure to value gold, well, then, we can see. I mean, J.P. Morgan just came out and said that they can easily see $6,000 gold by the end of Donald Trump's term as president, right? Because there's so few people in the United States that invest in gold that just if a small percentage increase were to occur, it would be like a tidal wave of money coming into the precious metals.
And investing, you mean snatching up physical gold, buying the ETFs, like every form of investing in discovery, exploration companies, production, like there's a million different ways to invest. I think, do you suggest then most people have a little bit of actual physical gold just on them, like in their household?
I don't keep any metals. I keep a very negligible amount of metals like on my person at my house. I think personally, now remember, I'm a guy who's been a big fan of gold and silver for several decades now, but I think that most people should be closer to like 5% in terms of an allocation to precious metals, whether that be through an ETF or some physical metal that you keep in a safe location, or even mining stocks, right? Like I'm pretty heavily invested into precious metal, mostly gold, but a little more silver now, mining stocks as well.
I want to get into that as well. When you're thinking about talking about hoarding gold, I'm Indian and I've obviously Indian parents.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with hoarding gold.
I know.
So when people get married, so I think I got more than enough on my end, but for all my non-Indians out there, maybe something to consider. Really quick, I've noticed over 80% of viewers who watch aren't subscribed. An easy way to support the channel is by hitting that subscribe button, and I personally commit to continue providing quality educational content with each video. I'm just using some hypotheticals here. You don't have to comment on this. I always go like a conservative portfolio, or at least my version portfolios if you're just ETFs, you do 70% in like the S&P 500. If you're American, you buy VOO. This is for hyper conservative people who don't want to think. And this is if you're not doing all in one. Then you do, I don't know, 20% in international, developed, and emerging markets. So what are you at? 90%. Then maybe there's room for 5% there for gold, right? And then you can do 5% in whatever else. I think that's kind of when I was thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I could probably reallocate and take some from emerging markets or developed markets and use that small percentage and reallocate it into 5%. Now let's talk about the hypothetical 5, or where am I going to put it? I think the ETF that you mentioned first, especially if you're saying, well, you're not saying, you're just reporting on what other people are saying, that it could get up to $6,000 by the end of Trump's presidency. You said it's at 3,000. So like, okay, great. Just from looking at percentage increase, put some there. Physical gold, I got enough of that. Next thing is, all right, there are gold exploration companies. Simplifying this, exploration is people going out there and going, where's the gold?
Developers,
people go, okay, I think there's gold here. Let's get the permits. Let's build the infrastructure. And then there's third, there's gold producers who go, all right, thanks, other two. I'll buy that off you, or I'll work with you. Let's extract it from the ground and let's sell it. Essentially, that's what they're doing. And then they have gold reserves. And there's a couple interesting facts about this. Which one for newer investors do you suggest investing in to start? Secondly, gold they don't find a whole lot of new gold every year.
No.
I think the reserves increase by 1% every year or some crazy low. Are they running low on reserves?
Yes.
And when I look at stock prices of some of these, especially exploration companies, you're talking 20 cents, 12 cents. But then I go, my brain is going, well, they're not finding a whole lot. Gold price is going up. Are they going to start investing in that? And then, I'm looking at your channel. This is where I get my gold news from. A lot of these facts guys, I'm getting it from interviews Ron does, stuff like that. But I didn't know that exploration to production now is going from 9 years up to 17 years. And so I'm like, okay, so my time horizon on that is I'm thinking immediate lift. You're going to just open up a mine. It's not how it works. And then they're going to Pakistan, Afghanistan, places where they have to now work with the locals to make sure they don't get murdered. There's a whole bunch of stuff involved in this. That's just some facts for you guys. Like, that's that situation surrounding it. So you, a newer investor, this is for me interesting. Where do I start? Where do I?
Yeah, well, everybody's different. And like I said earlier, I'll repeat it one more time. I'm not a financial advisor. Now, the kind of hierarchy you laid out from a gold explorer is a company that's the highest risk, but potential highest reward. It's a group of people that are raising money and saying, we have a claim up in Alaska, in Quebec, in West Africa, wherever it may be. And we're going to go, we believe there's gold there. We have really good reason to believe we're going to go drill it and we're going to find it. And we're going to report that back to the market, and we're all going to get fabulously rich, right? That is the most risky part of the market. The developers have already done that. The developers either themselves or they acquired a property that's already been drilled, right? And scientifically, and there's strict regulations on how this is done, they've been able to establish that based upon, actuarial type data, we know that there's 2 million ounces of gold on this property. So now they're moving it through the process of getting a permit and building a mine. That's why they're called developers. A little less risky. And then at the top of the food chain, you've got kind of mid-tier producers, companies that have mines, have the gold in the ground, they're producing. You can see their quarterly numbers, see how much gold they're making. And then above that, there's the majors like the Newmonts and the Barricks, the big names, with the big. So that's kind of the hierarchy. And it just depends on how someone wants to kind of allocate their money based on risk, right? Because the explorers can offer unbelievable return, but most of them wind up not doing anything. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. And I will say this about and I want to circle back to something else you said as you were speaking is, yes, there is less and less and less gold being discovered every year. All the low-hanging fruit is gone. Okay. Now we're in a very interesting situation right now where the gold price is around $3,200 per ounce. These big producers, the companies that already have the big operating mines, look, when gold was $2,200 an ounce, let's say it cost them $1,500 to get it out of the ground per ounce. When gold goes to $3,200 an ounce, it still costs them $1,500. So they are printing cash like never before. They also are mining as much gold as they can. So they're eating through their reserves, which they need to replace. And these big mining companies generally don't want to go out and explore for gold, right? It's outside of their wheelhouse. It's risky, everything else. So as they accumulate all this cash, they are going to start looking at some of these development stage companies because it's a lot cheaper. And the cool thing, Gary, is that these developers are so underpriced. I mean, from any metric, it's incredible. So they're going to have all this cash and they're going to have to go on a shopping spree and buy up because there just isn't a lot of gold being found. And there's very few companies that are kind of in that advanced stage of development. So it's an interesting dynamic. I'll end with this. I believe, and I have a lot of my own personal money invested kind of through the whole food chain, both on the gold and the silver side. They are, when you compare a precious metals mining stock to any tech stock, it is mind blowing. And I'm not saying they're the same thing, obviously, but just any valuation metric, the mining sector has been just ignored and ignored. And I think that we're moving into a period of time where interest in that sector, because it's been so depressed and so far down, a little bit of interest can go a long, long way.
The next question I have is there's gold royalty companies.
Yeah.
And you can invest into those. And essentially, from my understanding, is they're financiers.
Yeah.
They provide capital to exploration companies, production companies, and they just take percentage and they're paying out that percentage monthly to shareholders.
Yeah.
So they're almost like a dividend type stock.
Right. Yeah.
Should I treat them like that? That's essentially how I should treat it. If I'm psychologically looking at it, like that's an interesting one. Like I'm not a dividend investor. I feel like that's not capital gains is what I care about at this point in my life. But it's how do you frame that? Like if you're kind of shaking your head at me saying it's a dividend, like what is it really then?
Well, a gold royalty company, I think it was Pierre Lassonde created the first one. Essentially, they are going usually to the development stage companies that are not yet producing, but they're in the process of, let's say, building a mine. They need money. Okay. They can either dilute and sell stock, or they can go to a royalty company and say, hey, if you give us $100 million right now, we will sign a contract with you that says you get 3% of any of the gold that ever comes out of this mine. You get the first, dibs on that gold for as long as the mine operates. So it's a lot of people think it's not an area that I'm an expert in, but it is a very interesting way to invest in the gold and silver mining sector, because a lot of people think it's a lot lower risk. It doesn't take these. I've heard statistics, and I won't try to repeat them because I won't be accurate, but these massive royalty companies may only have like 8 employees, and they're like multi-billion-dollar companies because that's all they need, right? And then
accountants, they need accountants essentially.
Accountants,
right? Do all the finance.
Exactly. And there's a lot of really smart people. That business. My sense is that, since I've been really involved in the precious metal sector for a while, that business became kind of crowded. Wheaton was the big one in silver that started, and these were like about 10, 12 years ago. And then everybody saw what an attractive business model it was. So it became competitive, right? It became a lot more competitive. But I still think, in particular with these precious metals prices, and where if they do reach levels like silver right now is around $32 an ounce, I really in my heart believe that within the next year, and I've actually opened my mouth and said that by April 1st, that we could have silver around $60 an ounce. Okay. I don't make any financial decisions based upon that. That's what I believe. I had the same feeling about gold when gold was trading at 1,800, 1,000, that it would go, you can't see him. Well, maybe you can have a bear.
I was just about to say, that bear behind you had him blindfolded until he hit 2,500.
People said I was crazy because I was a silver pumper and a gold pumper. And, I just
you're a guy in his basement rambling about gold. How could anyone think you're crazy, man? There you go.
I'm the first one to admit I'm crazy, right? And we haven't even talked about crypto yet. So
yeah, we haven't even gone into that. I want to go into a little bit about silver here, because there was some stuff. I was watching an interview with you, and I think a CEO, or maybe just you talking, you mentioned silver supply is being consumed faster than it's being made. So for me as an investor, that's a ding. That's a green check mark for me. I go, perfect, supply and demand. I don't understand silver a lot, but when I was reading through it, is silver being used differently? Because when I think of gold, I go, gold is being hoarded. I don't know how it's being used in manufacturing. I know they put it in like space shield to reflect like the sun and stuff like that. But I think gold is mainly being held though in vault somewhere. I think that's what people do, and then they're giving away.
Once said gold, they dig a big hole in the ground, they dig it up out of the ground, and then they put it in a vault, which is usually another hole in the ground. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Is silver being consumed?
Yeah.
How is silver being used? Okay, that's a whole different game.
Would you like,
right? Because
do you want me to explain it to you? Get some coffee.
Yeah.
Get some coffee. Have a sip of coffee. Yeah, absolutely. Silver is critical in electronics. Silver is in the monitor you're looking at. Silver is in everything electronic, microchips. Silver is critical for solar panels. Silver is antimicrobial. It's used in all types of medical devices, water purification. Silver is in all the batteries. These new batteries. Samsung has a new solid state battery out. It's going to be markedly better than the batteries that we're using now. I think each battery is going to use like a kilogram. So silver is being consumed. Yes. Go ahead.
So silver for that ecosystem that for, like the EV revolution,
Yeah.
you need cobalt, you need all these other silver's in that mix.
Yeah.
So there is going to be, no matter what, as they ramp up, I'm just going to go with EV and, you said it probably in our chips and stuff.
Yeah.
As that ramps up, there's a demand. So then where are the silver mines located? Is there an issue with building that infrastructure like there is with cobalt and stuff? Like they have to go to the Congo and like extract it, and there's a whole thing there.
Most silver comes from Mexico. Mexico's is the biggest silver. Now I have can I show my sponsor sign real quick? I have a sponsor.
Do whatever you want.
First Mint. Okay. First Mint is a mint that's in Las Vegas, Nevada. They make world-class silver bullion products. But First Mint is owned by First Majestic Silver, which mines exclusively in Mexico. So yes, most silver, especially that we get in the United States, is going to come from Mexico. There's silver in the United States, up in Idaho. There's silver in Canada, definitely as well, up in British Columbia. But what's interesting about silver, Gary, number one, you're correct. There's a deficit, they call it the silver, and there's been a silver deficit now for like 4 years, where let's say there's about 1 billion ounces of silver being produced by the mines and by recycling, but the world is consuming like 1.2, 1.3 billion ounces of silver. Now, Gary, what makes it even more interesting about silver is the fact that because the silver price has been kept so low, there's no money to be made. It's very difficult to make money as a silver miner. Been a lot of exploration for silver and very little development. So as the world continues to consume more and more and more silver, and the supply coming from the mines stays like this, eventually price fixes everything. Eventually, in theory, no crystal ball here, but as the price shoots up, well, then suddenly people say, we need to build silver mines. We need to build silver mines. But like you touched on earlier, it takes a decade to go from we need to build a silver mine to actually having a silver mine that's producing. So there could be a window, right? Be a window of time where we've got just steadily increasing demand for silver and a gap that's going to take maybe, even if they speed it up 5-10 years to produce more silver.
I was gonna say, but you mentioned it's in Mexico. Does that have any effect on production time? Because when I was looking at gold, they're going to West Africa and places like that. I'm like, that looks like a pain, and that's what's dragging it out. Mexico, I would assume, way better relations. They've been established for a long time. They can speed it along a little bit more. 10 years, that's a reasonable window. And like you mentioned, if there's a gap, that's kind of like the opportunity is like, while it's being undervalued now, before everything jumps into production, because that's going to increase price if it all flows properly. It's like, if you're interested in silver, man, just talking to you, I'm just kind of getting like hyped, going, okay, I gotta get into silver. I gotta not get too. I don't get overexcited, and not financial advice from Ron. We are just talking shop here. I'll do it for you. Don't worry. Not financial advice from me ever. You know this because I come from an advertising background first. So you want marketing advice, you can pay me for that. So. Okay, that's gold and silver. Does silver have the same structure then? Is it same type of thing? You're investing in exploration companies, you're investing in production companies. It's the same flow, physical, all of that. So that's something to consider. I wonder do I have any other questions for silver?
Let me say one more. You said your parents are from India, right? You're Indian.
Yeah.
India is importing massive amounts. Obviously, Indian people love gold. That's well known. But they're also importing just unbelievable amounts of silver because Indian people are now starting to get interested in silver. But a lot of it's for industry as well. Just one final point. Solar panels are it's absolutely astounding how many solar farms. There's solar farms in India that are like, I don't know, the size of Manhattan or the size of Paris. I mean, there's just, in each panel, it's up for debate, but typically I think at minimum, each solar panel has like a third up to a whole ounce of silver in it. So Uh, and the other final thing I'll say about India, you know this, but I think the audience would benefit from understanding this. We already know about China. China's same story with silver, but we'll focus on India. 1.4 billion people. The estimates that I hear are that there'll be like 100 million that'll move into the consumer class in the next like 5 to 10 years. All those people are going to be buying, these things, refrigerators, electronics, all this stuff, right? They're going to want electricity, and in India, solar's big. It's unbelievable the potential just when you look at India for what
Yeah.
what the metals could do.
I want to talk a little bit about China before we move on. Watching a lot of your videos, and you've been kind of on China and how it affects gold price.
Yeah.
I was trying to wrap my head around it. Are they buying a lot of physical gold? Is that what they're doing, and they're affecting price, or they're warehousing it? And for you mentioned silver, there's my electronic that they're buying the manufactured goods that it'll affect, so that'll affect price. But for gold, I was interested, how are they investing that's affecting everything, and how is you as an investor on the American side reacting to that? Because I saw a video where you said China is on holiday, so this is our time, and I was going like, what does that mean? Is that when you guys buy in? Like a little bit of that to simplify for me, because it seemed like a whole game everybody was playing between Americans and China, and you're like back and forth.
Well,
gold thing.
Not to get into a long-winded discussion about this, but the Chinese, let's say over the last decade, basically, were manufacturing a lot of things. We all know that, shipping them to the United States, shipping them to Canada. We were paying them with dollars. Then they would take those dollars and, put that into we would then borrow that money back from them through the treasury market. I mean, it was a wonderful scam while it worked. They're kind of saying, hey, guys, we're done with that for a number of reasons. I'm giving a real nutshell explanation. But the Chinese, like Americans, like any country in the history of the world, have always loved gold. So there is speculation from very smart people who know a lot more about the details of how gold moves from Switzerland, New York, around the world, that the Chinese, that their official gold holding numbers are grossly understated. And I believe at the same time, China's also the world's biggest producer of gold as well. So, it's interesting. There's a market called the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which is the equivalent of, like, in the United States, we have the COMEX. In London, they have the LBMA. And the Shanghai Gold Exchange is a physical market, meaning you pretty much have to have the physical metal to trade on it. So it's like a physical price. And it's always, in particular with silver, the price for silver in China is always like 10-15% higher than what we have in the United States.
That's interesting. They're underreporting their gold, and in America, you think they're overreporting something.
Well, some people, right?
Yeah, we're yeah, so like, that's interesting. I'm gonna do. This is the part. So we've been working from what I understand the most, which was already very little, which was gold, to a little bit less, which was silver. Now let's go into what I completely don't understand, and that is crypto. Especially, like, crypto is such a question mark for me. So there is crypto. There's a couple things here. Payment coins is, I guess, what I'm familiar with, which is a Bitcoin and stuff like that. You moved into something called meme coins, and a meme coin is that what a Doge coin?
Yeah.
Well, that would be classified as that. Yeah. And then there is 50 other different classifications of coins. But for me, it's simplify this in for everybody watching. Payment coin. What is the difference between a Bitcoin and a Doge coin? Fundamentally, what are their differences?
Yeah, and I'm not familiar. Look, I've been in crypto for 6 months, right? All my crypto fans will understand. So I'm still learning. I've learned a great deal. But
this is perfect though. Yeah, so, they like everyone's coming from the same.
Okay, so when you think about Bitcoin, this is how I understand it. And trust me, the internet will correct me if I'm wrong. But Bitcoin, and then there's another one called Solana, and you probably have heard of Ethereum. Those are actual blockchains. Those are like the motherships, the countries it was described to me as. Like, you can think of Bitcoin as the United States, and you can think of Ethereum as Europe, if you want, or Germany, whatever. Solana is like a country. Those are the big kind of native tokens. And then from there, there's like altcoins. There's all these different coins. There's 15 million, Gary, cryptocurrencies that have been created. I mean, think about that, 15 million of them. So, and then typically the way people look at it is it goes down the food chain between these big native tokens and blockchains. And then you have like meme coins over here. In between, there's altcoins, utility coins, all these coins that were created oftentimes with big money behind them, like big, venture capitalists, people that it's kind of like a company going public, right? Like they invest tens of millions of dollars into XYZ coin. I won't use any names. And then they come out with, oh, this coin's going to change the world because it's going to enable X, Y, and Z to happen within the financial services industry, and they pump it. Then they do what's called an ICO, an initial coin offering, and get people to invest in it. And unfortunately, usually what happens is those people, like the retail that buy it, it goes down their exit liquidity for the big venture capital.
That's all I ever see.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always like, okay, what do I can't get in on this.
Right.
And another thing I always look at I'll go to Bitcoin is it's a payment coin, but I can't buy anything and it's not legal tender. So my I have to convert it back into cash to use it. Not a lot of people accept it. The price changes so drastically that, I'm not even sure if I buy a cheeseburger, even if I did use it, if I bought a cheeseburger with it today, it's like I could have bought 10,000 cheeseburgers 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like there's like weird things like that. What is I know you're new to this, but how are people seeing Bitcoin being used in the future? Is it going to work like gold? Like it's just a standard? Like what is Bitcoin's price right now? And that'll affect all other currencies in the crypto space?
People refer to Bitcoin as digital gold. And I think, and I'm just giving my impression, and again, the internet can correct me, but to me, and I think Bitcoin controls like 63% of the entire crypto market cap. So it is dominant, right? I mean, it is dominant. And you've got companies like BlackRock now behind it. It's interesting. You mentioned about buying cheeseburgers. There's a chain of hamburger stands, whatever you want to call it, hamburger restaurants in St. Louis in the United States called Steak and Shake. They just announced yesterday that they're going to start taking Bitcoin as payment. So, I think you can think of Bitcoin if you're in Canada, right? You're in Canada, kind of like if you had US dollars and you needed to use US dollars to buy something. It's MoonPay, who's one of my sponsors. We can't see they're like the leader in what's called fintech, financial technology. They're the on-ramp for people that want to convert paper money into crypto. They just announced a major partnership with MasterCard today that will enable people to use crypto for payment. So it's coming. I think that with the current administration in Washington, that it's coming now much faster. And we're seeing major changes going on that we're going to need to think of crypto more like, like digital gold or like any other currency per se, but one that's different. And go ahead.
Okay, so me looking outside in, that was a good way of putting it. I'm looking at it as a way of diversifying currency, I guess. I have gold, I have physical, tangible stuff, I have stuff locked up in stocks. Crypto would be, all right, I don't quite understand where it's going in the future, but it is a digital form of currency that can be taken with me anywhere in the world.
Right.
I don't really know how to get started with it. Like, is MoonPay one of those platforms where you have money in your bank account and then it gets converted into Bitcoin within their platform?
Yeah.
It's like a wallet and it sits in there. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sponsored by MoonPay, everybody. This is me plugging them. This is curiosity. Just explain to me, if they can do that, explain to me that process if I was going through like the platform. Like if I could is it an app I download?
Yeah, there's an app that you can download. It was actually, I started a cryptocurrency on December 16th of last year. I had never in my life owned a crypto. I didn't like crypto. I softened over 2024, but you can go back and watch videos that I made that got thousands, tens of thousands of views where I would sit down here and say, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Schmitcoin. Where is it? Let me touch a Bitcoin. Where, let me feel the Bitcoin. Thanks to my wife, Susie, well, here she is here. She communicates. I don't think she's going to talk to us today, Gary, but via walkie-talkie. She sent me an article about meme coins that you could start a meme coin for $50 or $100. I'm like, yeah, it sounds interesting. And the next day I decided, I watched a YouTube video to get back to your question, the very beginning part of the YouTube video said you're going to need your wallet. So I went upstairs and got my Boomer leather wallet, and I realized I needed to have a crypto wallet. And then I used MoonPay. And I honestly had never really heard of MoonPay. And you're gonna hear of MoonPay if you haven't already, like my experience. But I dug into MoonPay, actually called people I know that work at MasterCard here and saying, they're like, oh yeah, they're, wonderful company. It was really easy. I think I actually used my credit card just for simplicity's sake, but you can transfer money from a bank account, from PayPal. They make it very easy. And, they've had like 30 million customers, 34 million customers in 180 countries. And they allow you to convert a fiat, whether any kind of fiat, into crypto. And what I did was I converted dollars into Solana. And Solana is the base chain, kind of like a Bitcoin, kind of like an Ethereum, that UFD, the crypto that I created then, is based on. So I had to buy a Solana.
I get it. So, okay, it's called Unicorn Fart Dust. That's the meme coin, Ron. There'll be some imagery on screen showing what it is. So, Solana is sort of like the coin that it's based off of. That's what you guys tie it to. Like, that's the operating system of the meme coin is that. I always wondered that. Okay, that 100%, and that's why they're the countries.
Yeah,
that's why they're the foundation.
We're kind of like we're like a little town within the country of Solana. Trump coin. Donald Trump made a meme coin.
Yeah.
He copied off us, by the way. But
yeah, of course.
That's a Solana-based meme coin as well.
Okay, great. So let's walk through a hypothetical situation. I get my MoonPay, I download MoonPay, I transfer money from my bank account, my PayPal, I buy some Solana. Now it's sitting there. I bought Solana for one Solana for $1, right? This is the arbitrary number.
Well, no, Solana costs $180 right now.
For my simple math, though,
gotcha.
For my simple math, right. It'll be easier. I won't be able to divide 180. But then Solana goes from $1 to $2. I just doubled my profit. I sold my Solana, converted it back into Canadian. Now I have $2. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone do this. I get taxed on that profit. Though. Same way I would get taxed, right? So capital gains type tax. Okay. Only thing I want people in Canada to understand is I think watch out for your TFSA. It's a tax sheltered account like you guys have in the States. You have a Roth IRA.
Right.
Think those can't be held. I think you still get taxed on those in a TFSA.
Okay.
So please do your due diligence. If you're thinking about putting crypto in your TFSA, you might still get taxed on it. Yeah. So hold it outside. That's just something I was reading up on. Okay, so that's how that works. And that seems pretty straightforward enough. I was talking to a guy at a barbecue one time, and he was gung-ho about, you got to hold 5% in crypto no matter what. And for me, I was like, hey, you're some like super young Gen X kid. I'm not going to listen to you. But
I'm 55. I'm 55. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're so on the other side of the spectrum of what he's saying. So I'm going, maybe I should start considering this. I think, and this is only for myself, a small allocation, get my feet wet, would be something like how you described today. Taking some money from my PayPal, transferring it over through a wallet like a MoonPay, buying a little bit of Solana, seeing how I feel about it. Yeah. Do I tense up?
Right.
Does it feel weird? Right. And it's kind of going from there. I want to hear about Unicorn Fart Dust. I want to hear all about this. I want to hear about meme coins. You told me kind of how you got started because your wife sent you the article. I want to hear about how it's going. I want to hear about why do people invest in meme coins over just buying a payment coin? Like, these are a million questions. So let's just jump into, you started it, great. How's it going? And why do people invest in meme coins over payment coins?
Okay. So on December 15th, Susie sent me an article from NBC News about Fartcoin. It had reached $500 million market cap. I'm like, and I was making fun of it during my gold and silver live streams. But that article at the end said you can start a meme coin for $50. I've always been a person, and I'd softened toward crypto, but when I saw that, I thought, can you really do this? Like, start a cryptocurrency, a legitimate crypto for $50, $20. I watched a 10-minute YouTube video. And basically, in the matter of like an hour and a half, I sat right over there. I put $100. I bought half a Solana because Solana was about $200 at the time. I almost didn't do it because I thought, Susie and I could go out for a nice lunch or whatever. But I went through with it. Didn't think much of it from there. It was an experiment that I was going to talk about on my gold and silver and say, look at this, anybody. And I did. That's my first live streams. I said, look at this. I created a meme coin. The market cap is $6,000. And I was showing the screen and somebody bought it during the live stream. Like, somebody bought it, I'm like, this thing has a total market cap of $6,000. Um,
Yeah.
Long story short, and I'll just give you a quick history. That night, it went viral. And the thing you have to understand about crypto, and it really the same is true with companies, is that it's all about community, right? And no matter what, right? If you're invested in Apple, Tesla, whatever, you're part of a community, right? To one degree or another. You're part of, there's the Apple boys, I think they used to call them, and the Tesla fanatics. And what I realized very quickly, which I had no idea, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never owned a crypto, never touched a crypto. And within 24 hours, that crypto that I put $100 into, and that had a market cap of six. I owned like 1% of it at the beginning. Went from a market cap of $6,000 to $240 million within a
What the hell?
Yeah. So sorry, I had a message on my screen there. Yeah. Yeah, it was real, right? Like, and I did live streams. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I did sell a little bit on that first day. I wish I hadn't, right?
I would have cashed out.
Yeah, no, well, and that's interesting you say that because I had no idea what was going on. But everything in crypto happens on X, happens on Twitter platform. And what I started to realize is that there were all these people that believed in me, and were buying this because I don't know if you know this, but like there was the Hawk Tuah girl incident. There's been
a little bit
rug pull. What you talked about is called a rug pull, right?
Pump and dump, right? They pump it and then they
exactly. So I did a live stream that night and I said, I'm not going to sell anymore. I guarantee you, this was December 16th. I said, for 10 days, which was Christmas night, I will not sell any of these coins. Okay. And people believed me and believed in me. And I was completely different when I created this meme coin because most coins, whether meme coins, altcoins, utility coins, any coins, with the exception of Bitcoin, and I'll talk more about that later, but most of those other coins, millions of them that have been created, have some big money behind them, right? And have people that have they own like Trump, his coin that he put out, they still own 80% of the coins, right? Just to compare, when I created my coin, I owned 1%. And after I foolishly sold some on the first night, before I said I wouldn't sell anymore, I never like even thought. It's mind numbing what goes on in the crypto sector to a certain degree. So everybody trusted me, right? Which was a big deal. So I'm looking at my crypto wallet the next morning and it says, I'm now worth $1.2 million. And I'm calling my buddies. I'm on my screened in porch and they're saying, you're crazy. You should sell that. Get out. Go. You're done. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I know that feelings. I'm like, $1 million is a lot of money to me, Gary. Okay. But there was something in me that knew, number one, I needed to be true to my word. Okay. So there really was no option that I was going to sell. But number two, that what was going on with these people in this community, even in the first 48 hours, was something special and something very, very, very unique because the value of anything is based upon a group of people agreeing that it's valuable. The value of UFD, Unicorn Fart Dust, is because if you go on X and put in $UFD, you'd be blown away with what this community does every day. We have a DJ. We have a advertising program in Crunch Fitness right now. They built a car for me, a farting car, a promo car. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So it's a real thing, and it's really big. It still blows me away. I still love gold and silver, and I still put out some gold and silver content. But the UFD situation, I mean, we're about the 600th largest crypto in the world. All right now.
Wow.
So we're
out of 10 million that there are, whatever they're
there's 10,000 are actively tracked on CoinMarketCap, and we're number 600. We've been number 500. I keep joking around saying I want to get into the crypto 500, but we'll see. I'm sorry, I rambled. Go ahead.
What is it? If you don't like, what's the valuation today though? Like
about 40 million last time I checked.
Jesus Christ.
It's bigger than a lot of junior gold mining companies.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like it's a little hard for my brain to wrap around it. It is so weirdly different.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine something going from $6,000 to $250 million and it dropped down to $40 million. You still went from $6,000 and you stabilized out or whatever you landed back at 40 million.
Yeah.
I
it
don't
was
even.
as
Yeah,
low as 16 million a couple of weeks ago, and it was as high right after Trump put his
yeah,
coin out. It
yeah.
was as high as $400 million, Gary. $400 million. That's as big as like a lot of these mid-sized active gold mining companies that I've worked with.
Is it is the community growing and everything?
Yeah,
Like, would you track? Do you look at that? Is there
yeah.
like stuff that you just look at, like, hey, we're getting more people? I don't know. This is a random question. Do you get people who like My Little Pony and they just join and they buy? Because it seems like there's like
Every
I don't know why my brain
every
went. I'm like, I wonder if like
everybody loves UFD because it's a fair and level playing field. And
see.
I've been, and so we're different from most crypto, right? Because there's a lot of shenanigans that went on in the crypto sector over the last 10 years. A lot of it had to do with big money coming in and whatnot. So the average person felt like they got a raw deal, a bad deal.
Yeah, they got swindled.
Right. They got swindled. Everybody loves UFD because I had no idea what I was doing. This was not planned. Okay. On December 14th, I had no intention of ever starting a cryptocurrency. If you would have asked me about crypto, I'd have been like, whatever. Right. But from the very beginning, the only thing I did, right, was just kind of follow my own moral compass. And
Yeah.
it wound up that like completely resonated with a massive part of the cryptocurrency ecosystem, right? And I kind of treat it, I mean, I do a daily live stream, and like in terms of how I present things to my audience and to the people that hold the token, I kind of, because I'd worked with a lot of big, publicly traded mining companies over the years. I knew what they could say and couldn't say. I knew, like, I kind of treat it like that, and then just follow my own moral compass, and it's all over the world, Gary. That's the other thing that's wild about crypto is it's all
Yeah.
over the world. People in Africa own UFD. We got a guy in the Philippines named the Burger Man who like makes these videos. We've got a DJ, we've got people every corner of the planet that own this. It's like, so it's decentralized, right? Like gold and silver, right? Gold and silver are decentralized. No one central authority controls it. And so everybody around the world gets the same fair shot at UFD as anybody. And since we weren't started by a big, VC, funding or anything like that, people are able to get in at a point where we always joke around and say, like, this is the secret dinner before the launch, right? Like, this is the,
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Couple things on that. So my takeaway from two things is for payment coins, my takeaway there is if I'm trying to buy in, hey, hopefully I can buy in when it crashes.
Yeah.
When it drops and like I can get in at a cheap point. For meme coins and coins that are sort of built off those foundations of those large payment coins, I'm looking at transparency. I'm looking at how much information can I get on the people running this operation where I know they're not going to pull a pump and dump scheme on me and swindle me. And when you were saying it, you already had a built-in audience. You had people who trusted you. You obviously didn't want to ruin that trust, right? And ruin your reputation. I was looking at your site. Now it makes more sense because I was looking at your site, and you have stuff on your site, and it's on the same date, December 25th. My absolute 100% promise or contract with you. I'm not going to sell at 10-day mark, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you literally put it in writing on your website. And it's called the Sacred Docs. Guys, check out unicornfartdust.com. This is so fascinating to me because it's so different than what I do. So, but I guess for me as an investor or someone who's looking at this, that's how I'm looking for the opportunity. So for payment coins, it's, hey, I'll buy in when there's a crash. I'll buy in when I feel like the price is like not going up, when it's going down. And for anything outside of that, meme coins, I'm going, hey, do I know the guy who is preaching this coin? Do I know them? Do I trust them? Do they have that hold mentality where they're not going to just sell it once it hits $40 million, $250 million? They're going to hold it and I don't just lose, right? Because if I'm buying in at that valuation, I'm obviously paying more than that guy did, the guy who's pumping it.
Right.
So, that's what I have there. Another thing.
Let me throw something in. After the first night, I've never sold a coin. My wallet got hacked and they drained over $1 million worth. That's a whole different story. I've only bought coins. So when you talk, you're calling it pump and dump. in the crypto world, they call it rug pull, right? I did a rug push, right? The community donated back all those coins that were taken from me. And the only thing I've done is actually then use my own money to actually buy more UFD. So I don't do rug pulls, I do rug pushes. The other thing I want to mention to you, you keep calling them payment coins. You know, when you talk about Bitcoin, because that's the dominant one, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, I don't know if you guys have Coinbase up in, but they're going to be in the Fortune 500 here real soon. About 6 weeks ago, he said that Bitcoin has essentially become a meme coin. So, you know, this idea that there's this huge difference between UFD and Bitcoin, and there is a huge difference, no doubt about it, but it's not as big of a difference, I think, as most people think that it is. There's nothing stopping Unicorn Fart Dust, or for that matter, any other of those 15 million cryptos from becoming as big or bigger than any other crypto. And the other thing I want to throw in, because I think you'll find this interesting, is all cryptos are not created equally. One thing about UFD, which was paramount to me really getting on board with it during the early phase, realizing this monster I've created, UFD from day one, there were 999 million coins created. There can never be any more created. Never can be. Now, Dogecoin can create more additional coins, dilutive, over, and I'm not putting Doge down, much respect, right? But UFD is set up in a way that it's a finite static number, period. And they've all been issued. They're all out there. They're all being traded.
I have questions about that.
Yeah.
So help me understand this. So Bitcoin, people mine Bitcoin and that creates a coin. You have pre-created how many did you say? 999 million are out there. They're in people's digital wallets, and now you're just transferring them amongst each other.
Yes.
That's how many there are.
This jug represents all the UFD coins that have ever been created. Do you see the line up there? 999 million.
You're the Carrot Top of finance. Every time I see you, you're always pulling out another prop or some sort of gimmick.
Gary, they can never create any more beans. And those beans, we call the coins beans. Those beans represent what we call diamond-hooved dusters, which are people that own the bean and won't sell them. I'm sorry, no more props. Well, I got one more prop for you. Go ahead.
No. I love the props. Keep it up. So, but there's 999 million of them. You said Dogecoin can print more when they want. Yeah. So that's subject to digital inflation.
Yeah, right.
In a sense.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Okay. So
in Bitcoin, by the way, let me just throw this in. Yes, more Bitcoin are created every year, and the Bitcoin people are much more qualified to answer that question than I do, but there's a limit eventually, and it's getting pretty darn close, right? Like it's I think there's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, 22 million Bitcoin, and it's coming up where Bitcoin will be done in terms of
they mine 98% of it. That's just a random number I made up, but it's something like that. But he has a cap, so it's not subject to inflation to that degree either. But
dilution.
But Dogecoin dilution, that's a better word for it. But Dogecoin is UFD is not. So 999 million people own those right now. Those are in everyone's pockets, or people own a portion of them, but some of them are just available.
There's 40. There's about 40,000. The latest data that I saw, 40,000 people around the world that own Unicorn Fart Dust. Our biggest holder owns 2% of the outstanding coins, which would be, I guess, 20 million. And it goes all the way down to that last person who's number 40,000 that probably owns one or two. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And then another question you mentioned was decentralized. When I was looking at how to buy UFD, it says it's on decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges. I didn't quite understand what that meant. Can you explain that a little bit?
No, I don't understand either, but I'll give you my best.
Thank you.
But not okay. So we are listed on we are listed on a tier 1 exchange, Kraken, which is a huge tier 1 exchange along the lines of like Coinbase, like the big guys, Binance, the big ones. And then we're on what are called decentralized exchanges, which are exchanges that operate like one level below those. And those are all over the world. And we're on some big exchanges. We just got on a big exchange earlier this week called HTX. I think they've got like 47 million customers. They're big in Asia. right? Yeah, really, the easiest way for somebody to buy it is through like a Kraken, or there's a platform called Moonshot. That's one of the drawbacks to crypto, is it can be a little intimidating and to get those first buys in. So I always advise people, take your time. We're going to be here, right? And even if they want help with UFD, we have what are called spaces on X, and probably 1,000 people now have gone on and gotten help from other people in the UFD community about how to actually buy the token.
Another thing I was looking at was because I forgot the terminology for it, but what it's a form of legal payment where someone has to accept it as payment. So people have to accept credit card, they have to accept cash,
Right.
but gold and crypto aren't legal forms in the States. But I was watching your video, there's legislation trying to push through. I think some states are pushing through gold as
legal tender.
Will that affect gold prices? And is there any legislation that you're aware of that is trying to push crypto in general, like Solana, Bitcoin,
and there is
as legal payment?
It seems like every day there's new news about crypto in terms of legislation in the United States, and it's evolving so quickly that I don't think that I can really speak intelligently on the matter, but I can tell you that what we're seeing is a definite shift in the pendulum toward crypto becoming mainstream in the United States. The news this morning from again my sponsor MoonPay about their partnership with Mastercard, Coinbase being listed on the S&P 500. And look, 3 months ago, before, during the previous administration, Coinbase was like dealing with major issues with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So things are changing very, very rapidly, both on the crypto front and on the precious metals front. There are a number of individual states that either have or are in the process of creating what's called legal tender legislation that recognize gold and silver as money. I think New Hampshire just passed, if I remember correctly, legislation that allows the state treasurer to buy Bitcoin and gold and silver to keep in the state treasury. So yeah, things are.
Looks like New Hampshire, from what I was looking at, is more progressive and all that kind of stuff. Like making sure, it seems like they just let all that kind of stuff pass a little bit easier. A hard pivot, and this is really for my curiosity. How did you? First of all, what were you doing before all this in your life? Before you started YouTube, how did you end up in a basement talking about gold and silver? I know how you got into unicorn fart test and you pivoted from gold silver to that.
Yeah.
And you carved out this weird niche on YouTube. No, like everything from your legal disclaimer on your videos is different. If you read, it's like, don't take my legal advice, don't take my financial advice. If don't buy a puppy because I told you to buy a puppy, it's like, no, there's like this skew you have on everything.
Since we're dealing with legality, it's don't adopt a puppy, get engaged, or make any kind of decision based on anything that I say. And I mean that, right? I believe what I believe. And thankfully, I live in a free country where I can say what I want and talk about what I really believe in, okay? And trust me, read the comment section of my videos. There's a lot of people who don't agree with me, and that's fine. Whatever. That's wonderful. So to answer your question, how did I get here? I grew up very middle class. I went through college on an athletic scholarship. I got a degree in accounting. I worked for a Big Four accounting firm. Didn't like accounting as a job, to be honest with you. Spent about 15, 20 years in the IT consulting and recruiting business. Wound up down here in my basement running my own little IT consulting recruiting firm. Did very well. Honestly, got tired of doing that. Got burnt out.
Yeah.
And wasn't wealthy, but didn't necessarily, my wife and I, we were in the process of having twins. I had an opportunity to take a fun little job like a mile from my house that would give health insurance. And I thought, I'm going to do that and get rid of all this stress that I'm dealing with and spend time with these babies. And so I did that for about 7 years, just worked at night, fun job, great place, and spent like unbelievable amount of great time with my daughters as they were growing up. Went to every playground in St. Louis, whatever. Fast forward to about probably, and I always loved YouTube, but I never took it seriously. But then the girls got a little bit older. I got to be, I don't know, 51, 52. And I'm sitting on my couch and I'm thinking, well, I can either like ride off into the sunset or do something. And I wanted to do something. And I knew that I loved creating, and I knew that I loved gold and silver. And I knew that YouTube, you could make a living doing it. And I just kind of looked myself in the mirror and said, do you want to provide a good example for your daughters? Do you want to be able to look yourself in the mirror? I think that I have value to give to people. YouTube's a free market. Nobody's ever forced to watch me on X or YouTube or anything else, right? If I give people value, they'll watch my videos.
Yep.
So what I did was I made a commitment and I said, you know what? For 1 year, I'll make one video a day, but even more importantly, I'll learn one thing a day. So I got books down here. I read books on how to be successful on YouTube. There's more YouTube videos about how to make YouTube videos than you could ever watch in your entire life, right? But I parsed through, and the guy,
100%.
Gary V, there's a guy named Gary V, Alex Hermosi. I mean, I could just like all these people, and I started watching and listening to what they were saying. And I've got a black notebook that I carry with me every day, like a big black notebook where I would take notes on what I learned during that day. And if you saw my desk right now, it looks nice and clean, but behind it, it's full of notes of things that I learned that give value to people. And I did it. I knew, let me tell you, this is a good learning lesson. I knew when I told myself that I'd make one video a day, I knew, because I know me, that after about 5 or 6 weeks, I'd hate doing it and I'd want to quit. And I told myself, when that happens, that's when you don't quit. That's when you keep going, because 99.6% of YouTube channels fail, right? And that's why, because it's hard work, right? This is not all fun. You're working on it.
Yeah.
It's a grind, you know?
It
So
is.
I'm sitting down here one day, Gary, and it's about 5 weeks in, and I'm sitting right here and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I'm a loser, I'm in my basement making YouTube videos. Nobody's watching them. You're whale poop, Ron. You should quit. And I told myself, I'm like, I know this stinks. I know it's not fun right now, but you knew this would happen. And this is when, prove to yourself that you stick. And I made a video and I got done making the video and I thought, well, that sucks. Excuse my language. And I posted it. And it was like my most watched video to that point. And I was like, you got to stick with stuff in life, right? Like you got to be willing to learn. You got to be, you don't want to stick with things that are dead ends or whatever. But I knew YouTube, there was great potential. And Gary, I did that and continued for 3 years up until UFD, Unicorn Fart Dust, launched. And I grew an incredibly successful business and had a lot of great times. And so that's a long answer to a short question.
I think what's most interesting about you is how you translate on screen. Like you're very much yourself. You have this unique style. When you started the mining and silver industry, which is very buttoned up and kind of boring. Like when you talk to no offense, like I've worked with plenty of CEOs, mining industry CEOs and stuff, but it's very controlled. I always tell people that I work with, like clients I work with, like CEOs, founders, like, hey, you gotta to break through. You can't just be like everyone else. You gotta really let your personality shine through, even if it's disrupting the industry status quo. That's actually going to help you.
Right.
Was that a conscious choice for you? Because you were looking around, you must have seen videos like that guy's boring, that guy's boring, that guy's boring. That's all very bland, where you just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do the wrong thing full blast, and I know that's going to break through. Was that an intentional choice, like a marketing choice of like, I'm just going to go, or were you just like, I just don't know how to do anything else, it is what it is, I'm just going to be myself, if it works it works, I'm just going to be that's what I was always curious about that. I'm like, how much thought did you put into that before?
Not a lot, right? And people accused me of this being a green screen. I've had it all. I didn't put a lot into it, and I hate, and I don't mean this toward you at all, but that when people say just be yourself, right? Because I'll ask my sponsors, I'm like, what can I do different? And I'll ask people in the UFD community, like, we just love you, Ron. Just be yourself. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? I guess I'll just be myself. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So no, there wasn't. I think that I've always absolutely been honest with my audience. I only take sponsorships from companies that I either work with or I'm invested in. I am a very much a people pleaser. In my normal life, I'm a people pleaser type person. And, I had to learn that, and I'm very shy, believe it or not. I got to go to the Bitcoin conference here in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, oh, and I'll be fine. Right. But part of the reason why, and I didn't add this to the story, is that why I did YouTube too, is because I was just mad at myself that I was such a wimp, that I was so afraid to do any kind of public speaking or to get on camera. Because the viewer who's watching this right now, you may think, oh, Ron's just, he's so comfortable. And it's took me years to get to the point. I'm still not comfortable. You know, I was driving around my lawn tractor before I came down here, and I'm thinking, oh, I got to talk to Gary. But I'm a very shy person in a lot of ways. And when you turn that camera on and for the first time and you start making a YouTube video, you feel like the whole world is looking at you. It's like public speaking on steroids. But what you realize after a certain amount of time is that nobody gives a crap, right?
Nobody
Nobody
cares.
cares.
Yeah.
I'm not as important as I thought I once was. Like I thought, oh, my aunts and uncles and my neighbors. And, it's funny because I had and I still do, have a wildly successful, not the most, but very successful, like 1 in 10,000 YouTube channel. And people kind of know that I do that. Nobody ever asked me about it. And I heard that one time. This is interesting about YouTube is that don't tell your friends and family because like you want to have a niche, right? You want to have a group of people that like what you do. Your friends and family probably aren't going to fall into that niche. So don't even waste your time saying, hey, watch my YouTube video. Hey, like focus on the people. And that's what it comes down to is connecting. Like right now, you and I are talking, right? But there's a third, a fourth, a fifth, maybe 10,000 other people that are going to join us on this. And we got to give them value. We got to give them something, right? And like, I applaud you because you're like curious and learning. And I can feel like you're connecting with that person out there that wants to learn about gold and silver, learn about crypto. You got to give people value and connection, right? And boy, Gary, you didn't even ask me any of those questions and I answered them anyway. Go ahead. Next question, Gary.
No, that's perfect. You hit the nail on the head when you said nobody cares. And I think that was the biggest freeing part. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to on camera and look like such a fool. Everyone's going to be like, what's Gary talking about? Like all this stuff. And I realized nobody actually cares. So I got no views. So then you're like, oh, no one's watching.
Right.
And like you said, the niches, I'm talking about investing and stuff like that. Nobody in my personal life really, really cares. Sometimes I will send a video over to my friends. I'd be like, hey, I made a video on beginning investing. Can you guys please watch? Because I want my friends to make money. I'm like, can you please start using your tax advantages account?
Right.
And they're like, yeah, sure. We'll watch it. We'll watch it in a bit. Right. So like that part. Because I think a lot of people watching this, that's a big thing. Like everyone has something to offer someone. Everyone has some sort of level of expertise. And if you even considered YouTube, just do it. Because once you get that ball rolling and you get that rhythm at like the 5-week mark and you're like, all right, and you push through that boundary because it is around the 5 weeks. You're right. It's like at that point, I don't know. It just changes. Yeah.
Think about this, Gary. I don't know how old you are, but I'll be very honest. I'm 55 years old. When I was 25 years old. Okay. If I wanted, we are living in a magical time of history. This is like the equivalent of when the printing press was invented. Because when I was 25 years old, living in Chicago, right out of college, if I wanted to communicate anything to the world via video, I would have had to spend $25,000 to get a video made and then tens of thousands of dollars. Dude, I sat down here for the first year. I do have a webcam now with my phone and a $5 microphone and a bunch of light bulbs. That's my lighting. Does my lighting look okay? I don't know, but
it looks great.
It's a bunch of, it's like 8 different light bulbs that I mess around with, for free. It was free. I mean, this is like an incredible piece of history where suddenly, like when the printing press came around, it allowed people to share information in print form and it transformed the world. Now, what you and I are doing right now is transformative where we're able to spread this message to people all over the world. Right. And what's even crazier, then I'll shut up, is I don't know, like where I am is YouTube. I'm a partner, whatever it's called. My videos that I make can be now auto dubbed into 9 different languages. Crazy.
Yeah. I saw that on your last video. You mentioned it too. I was trying to find it. You're like, click on the wheel icon and then you can like go. So what is, are you talking then with a Spanish accent?
No, I'm speaking in Spanish. Sorry. I'm speaking in Spanish or Japanese or German or French or I don't know. There's 9 Portuguese. I don't know. There's like 9 languages.
Wow. So before you'd have to create multiple channels with that different language, but now like they can, it was your main channel, click that button and it's all that. So, all right. So to bring this all full circle here, we talked about gold investing, how to get involved in that from a conservative approach. A guy like me, remember, not advice. What I'm probably going to kind of do after this is gold ETF, safest bet for me. just add that more portfolio, and then kind of seeing what I want to invest in that pipeline of exploration, development, or production.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with a lot of those companies just because I've worked with so
Sure.
many.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just pick a couple companies that I've maybe done work for in the past and work with that. That'll be my approach. Just that I already own enough gold. Silver thing is super interesting. I think I'm going to keep doing more research into that now and see, because I think that's super exciting. That's really exciting for me. So I want to do more. I might in the future now, guys, do more silver videos and just what I learn about it. And then for the crypto thing, I think I'm going to do the easiest entry point thing, like you were kind of mentioning. I'm going to do like a MoonPay type thing. I'm going to take a little bit of money. I'm going to buy it, just have it, get my feet wet, see how I feel about it, and don't go outside of that for a little while. And that's going to be kind of something I'll be doing now moving forward.
Can I throw one more thing in real quick, Gary? The other option for gold that we didn't talk about, this is very interesting, is in MoonPay just made this available like a week and a half ago, is tokenized gold. So have you heard of USDT, the stable coin USDT? That's from a company called Tether. Tether also has a product called XAUT, which is tokenized gold. Okay, so each token of XAUT is going to cost roughly what an ounce of gold costs, but each token is backed by real physical gold in a vault in Switzerland, and it's LBMA, good for delivery gold. So it's like all super legit. Again, this is Tether, but that really combines the benefits of owning physical gold with the benefits of tokenized gold, right? Because owning physical gold is, a lot of people, including me, would say, well, if you don't have it in your hand, it's not yours. But there's some drawbacks to that as well. So it kind of combines the benefits of tokenization with the benefits of holding the physical metal.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. I must have forgot. Yeah, that was really interesting. I was watching a video on that a couple of days ago. So it's digital. It's a coin that's completely backed 100% by actual physical gold.
Yeah.
So the coin value changes on
with the price of gold.
Gold. Wow, that's what it is. It's just a one-to-one. It's just literally just you own gold, but it's just a digital version. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hash it out for physical?
Yeah,
gold,
it's redeemable. Or you can. It is redeemable. You can learn all about it at the Tether Gold website. Yeah, it's. I'll just read this. Interesting. Here are my notes when I first started kind of learning about it. It's verifiable, right? It's audited, all that good stuff. It's stored safely, right? If you've got 100 ounces of gold at your house, you've got 100 ounces of gold at your house. I'll leave that alone. It is.
By the way, I have no gold in my house, and when watching this, it's secure.
Yeah, same here. Same here. It's redeemable. The other thing is it's tradable 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it's divisible, which means like it can be divided down to like 6 decimal points, like tiny little fraction. So if you only wanted to sell a quarter of an ounce or an eighth of an ounce or a 1/10,000th of an ounce, and you can transport it, right? Like, look, Gary, I know, right? Let's say you've got 200 ounces of gold, right? And you want to go visit your old relatives back in India, and you want to bring your gold with you. Good luck taking 200 ounces of gold through the airport.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting. It is interesting.
Another thing I think with gold is, I know people say it is liquid. You can, if you have a couple ounces, you have some gold on you, you can go to like a pawn shop or something and like flip it. But this, I'm assuming, is far more liquid because it's a digital coin where I can go, I sell this, I get some cash.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just a more hyper liquid version of physical gold. And it is physical gold, but the digital, because like you still have to go through that process of, I have physical gold, I got to find someone to buy it. They got to like appraise it probably and like figure out what the quality is and then sell it. That's a whole process.
And the other thing is too, is if you do that, you go to the pawn shop or the coin shop, there's big spreads that you pay, right? You pay a big, to buy a gold coin. And then to sell a gold coin back, let's say in the same day, you're probably going to lose $100. Don't quote me on that. We could look it up if you want, but you're going to lose a significant amount of money. Whereas with this, it's but it's very, very slim, laser thin, like commission or margin that you're going to pay on it as well.
That's great. That's actually, all right. That's another thing to leave us with, Ron.
We're going to have to go out for lunch if we keep talking here, buddy. All right. I've been long-winded.
This was fantastic. I learned a ton today. You are basically, you're my favorite gold silver channel for sure.
Aww.
I think, your dedication to it too. You pump out content like no tomorrow, which is crazy. Everything I just spouted today, if I look smart, guys, a lot of these things I got was just from watching Ron's video. So like for me, the crash course in gold and silver was actually binge watching his channel. And that's what I highly recommend you guys do if you are interested in gold and silver investing. If you're interested in now meme coins, he has his other channel there. Check that out. Ron, fantastic talking with you today, buddy.
Thank you. And thanks to your audience for being with us today. And I think you're my favorite financial investing. Now we're going to have a long, we'll have a long, hopefully we'll meet again and also meet up with our viewer who's with us today as well. All right, Gary, thank you.
Thank you. Talk soon.